Hey everybody, it's Sophie and Marco, dishing out on the movies. And it's still Stephen King week,
It's Stephen King month.
Stephen King month, and we are talking about the movie Thinner today. Last week it was The Stand. This week it's Thinner, and it premiered in 1996 and directed by Tom Holland, who we fortunately met in Philadelphia.
No, it was in Cincinnati.
Oh, geez.
Oh, jeez.
In Cincinnati at a horror convention a few years ago. Actually, it might have been last year.
Yeah, it was last year.
Thinner is based on a much shorter length book compared to the movie-based adaptation of The Stand. The main character in Thinner is a 300-pound overweight lawyer named Billy Halleck, played by Robert John Burke. He seems like a nice man who has a wife and daughter and is very good at his job. He recently got his mobster client off of a serious criminal charge, and the client's name was Richie Gianelli, played by Joe Montagna, an early unsavory role for him compared to his completely opposite Criminal Minds profile persona.
So you don't think he's likable?
Yeah, actually I do. He seems like a lot nicer and more refined than the people on that show that somebody's been watching, The Sopranos. Anyway, fresh off his win, or victory, Billy celebrates at dinner with family and friends. As he and his wife head home, she distracts him and he accidentally hits and kills a daughter of a gypsy king named Lemke, played by the famous Michael Constantine. King Lemke had been in the pharmacy buying a prescription from pharmacist Dr. Bangor, who was well played by Stephen King. The gypsy daughter had left the pharmacy to retrieve a coat. Next day, Billy goes to court for a coroner's inquest or a hearing to decide whether or not he should be charged for vehicular manslaughter. He had not been drunk, but truthfully, the sheriff should have tested him anyway. Unfortunately, the sheriff, the pharmacist, and the judge absolved Billy of his possible crime, and he was let off completely. Bad move on their small town good old boy system, because as Billy emerged out of the courthouse, Chief Lemke, or King Lemke, drove up, got out of the car, and touched Billy's face and spoke the word thinner.
What's that, man? Paint thinner?
Well, it means lose weight thinner.
Oh.
What Billy didn't know at first was that he had been cursed. And throughout the movie, the sheriff and the judge are also cursed, but we never see it happen. Only the results of the curses. It's true that Billy had wanted to lose weight or get thinner, but not to the point where he would die. When the weight loss gets to looking strange, like losing weight from morning until night, even with no exercise and overly excess eating.
3 pounds. 3 pounds a day. So that would be 3 times 7?
21.
21 pounds a week.
It wasn't until his mobster friend asked his mother about it for Billy. She knew exactly what it was and told him it was a gypsy curse and that it could only be lifted by the person who cursed him. Marco, take it away.
This movie, I kind of knew about it because of the poster. we used to go to a good video store called Hollywood Video, and the thinner movie was one of the ones that would always be faced open, because you would have a number of them that are faced sideways, and then there would be a couple at the end faced open to where you could see the cover, and they always had the thinner one there, and it's a very creepy poster. It kind of looks a little strange because of the coloring, and it's actually on the poster. It's an effect that they never ended up using in the movie. So I found that interesting, that they would put that on the poster and then not even use it in the movie. I kind of think that was cheap of the editor or whoever decided not to film that, because I think it's a great look. But anyway, that's a bit off topic. I thought that this movie was fantastic. It was very surprising how good it was. I think that it shows. Remember, I talked last week about how Stephen King has good setups and they have stupid payoffs. Well, this movie was very close to that happening until they had test audiences come in and watch it. And and thank God for those test audiences, because if they had ended it how Stephen King ended it, I would have rated this movie like 0 out of 10. I would have put it at the bottom of the list. And I think that the main character is cool. All the characters in the movie are cool because this was directed by Tom Holland. And one of the main things about Tom Holland, and written by him, and one of the main things about him is that he tries to make every character likable. Like, even if they're the bad guy. You look at Fright Night. The main two bad guys in that movie, they're not, like, really unlikable. They're, like, cool. In this movie, the bad guys, they're all likable in some way. I mean, some more than others. I did not like the gypsies at all. And I didn't really like the judge. So I thought that he did a great job. I thought that the movie was very well paced, although I thought it needed a couple of more shots of him eating. And other than that, I don't have anything bad to say about the movie. What do you have to say, Sophie?
Okay, well, I have some good things and bad things. Okay, first of all, I'll say what I didn't like about the movie.
Remember, no spoilers. Yet. No spoilers.
Well, I don't know what to... well, this happened at the very beginning of the movie. I'll just put the alluded sexual scene in the car. I didn't care for that. I thought it was stupid. And then something that the mobster does.
You're not allowed to spoil the movie, Sophie.
Okay, a couple of the things the mobster does I thought went too far, especially one. So I won't say what that is. And then what I did like was I liked, Billy.
The main character.
The main character, he has, he's eating like a pig. I mean, it's really weird for me. I'll say why at the end, but he's losing weight, and he's kind of like, it affects him mentally. And he has this dream scene, and I don't know if this is a spoiler. It just doesn't seem like it's going to be a problem for anybody to know it, but he goes to this fair, and I won't say all that happens, because it's not really important, and it's better if you just watch it yourself. But he goes to this booth, and anyway, at the end, they say, well, you're going to win a prize. And on the wall are all these figures of people. They cursed, not just the judge and the sheriff and him, but a whole bunch of people. And of course, we don't know who they are. But they're all like little, like 6-inch dolls. And they're not really, they don't look like dolls.
I think the heads are wooden carvings.
Oh, okay, yeah, they could have been wood, but they're very well made. And one of them is him as when he, at
In
the
the
end,
future.
when he gets really thin, and they give it to him. And then it just reminded me of because they look so real, like they're almost alive. I mean, it was really weird. It reminded me of the R.L. Stine movie, The Haunted Mask, with those masks that were real people's
Movie?
faces. Yeah, the movie.
No, that wasn't a movie, Sophie.
The Haunted Mask?
Yeah.
Yes, it was. It was on
that
TV.
That's not a movie. That's a television episode.
Well,
It's a two-parter.
okay, it was a 2-part TV episode. And then there was also Return or something, or Haunted
Get your
Mask
facts
2.
straight.
But anyway, well, another thing that I liked was, and I've already mentioned this at the very beginning, Stephen King plays a pharmacist. I thought he did an excellent job. He has two series of lines. First, he's in the pharmacy and he's waiting on the Gypsy King and his daughter. And then he comes the next day because that guy hit the daughter and killed her. He's there at the court hearing and he testifies. So I thought he did a really good job. I think that all these small parts he plays, that he always does a good job. And so I like that he could do that. He was able to do it and that he did a good job. And so anyway, I thought it was a really good horror movie. And if you could get past these negative things that I can't really talk about, the actual horror of what is happening is very creative and good. So I guess one thing that was weird for me, as you all know from the very early review we did a few weeks ago, we were all sick in this family for the last few months, and I lost a lot of weight. So I'm trying to gain it back. It's really difficult. Whenever this movie is called Thinner, and so watching this guy, I mean, they showed him, I don't think it's a spoiler because it's all part of the horror, but I mean, even before anything happened, he was kind of like addicted to food. And he even said it, he just can't stop eating. He likes food. So I think he has kind of an eating disorder. And so, anyway, as he starts losing weight, I mean, it's almost like, I don't know if he's deliberately or because he wants to gain weight, or it's part of the curse. He is just scarfing down the food.
There's a particular scene where I felt bad for the actors playing the wife, where he's eating this whole chicken that's left over in the fridge, and then he gets mad at her, and he's spitting out the chicken in her face, and it's all in his mouth, and he hasn't even finished chewing it. And
Well, anyway, it's just weird for me because I'm trying to eat, and I can't eat like that. I can hardly eat at all, really, and because I just don't like that much. I'm right now kind of what you would call a picky eater, and so to see this guy, and he doesn't gain an ounce, and he's scarfing. I'm not kidding. All this food they're having, like there's this dinner scene, and the whole table's filled with different dishes. It's not even Thanksgiving, and nobody eats like that. There's like 20 different dishes. I mean, different kinds of food. And he's eating all of it. He's just scarfing it all down. His daughter even gets grossed out and leaves the table. And I'm like, God,
I think that this movie shows something about Stephen King is that whenever they're short, whenever the movies are based off of his short stories, I feel like they're always better than the ones where the people say, hey, let's take the book and just copy and paste it on screen. I think that those movies work better than the ones where they copy and paste, like this one. I mean, just to list off a couple where they didn't just copy and paste it on screen. Based on short stories where they expanded on his work, came up with newer, better material that would work better on screen, and arguably better in general. Just to list a few. Misery, Shawshank Redemption, Children of the Corn, 1408, Thinner. Look at all those movies. They changed a lot of stuff. They expanded upon his work. Return to Salem's Lot, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Nothing like the book, so that counts. And you can clearly see that when people change his work for the screen, it's always better than when they just take the book and put it on screen. When they do that, it's okay. But they never do it completely. That's what's funny, is that they try to please both entities by making new stuff and copy and paste in the book, and so it never works. It's fun to see because when you read stuff, it's always fun to see it actually on screen, but I think that it's better, and it always serves Stephen King's work better when they don't really follow his work and when they do stuff on their own and expand upon his work. So, what's your rating, Sophie?
Well, it was hard for me, and I decided, after looking through my Pinterest board, to kind of jog because right now I'm just having the worst time gaining this weight back. One thing I really, really like, and there are little things on it that I feel like onions. I don't care for onions, really. Chopped up onions on my food. It's Mexican pizza. And why would I rate a Mexican pizza? I like it. But I may not like the element of the onions, and sometimes when we get it, it gets cold really fast. So, but overall I like it's like one of the best things that I eat at Taco Bell. I don't really eat anything else there, and the crust is really thin because it's made out of tortillas. So like thinner, like the movie Thinner. And so anyway, but all the rest of the things like the tomatoes and the meat and there might be beans on it, I don't know, and the cheese, I really love it. So I gave it a Mexican pizza.
A Mexican pizza?
Yeah.
Ew.
Except of the onions, I don't like chopped up onions very much. So that's after a couple of the things that I didn't like about the movie.
Okay, I give this movie. I'm not gonna do the thing where I come up with it on the fly anymore. I just did that so that I wouldn't change my mind in the review. But okay, my first rating from now on that I thought about and I came up with it beforehand. My first one so far is a peanut butter pie with chocolate crust, lots of whipped cream, peanut butter cup bits on top. I mean, big, thick hunks of peanut butter cup bits on top, and then hot fudge drizzled on top, and it's extremely hot, and the pie is very cold. The whole entire thing in one sitting. That's the rating.
Marco, God. Oh my God, I don't think you'd like that.
Why are you calling me the name of the actor who plays the main character?
Oh.
I give the peanut butter pie because I thought it was weird. I thought about pie after this movie, obviously. I also thought about the color purple for some reason. But there's not really any food that's the color purple. I was thinking about giving this movie like gummy worms or something like that, but that's like for a cheaper, lesser movie. I had to give it some sort of a nice pie, and I mean peanut butter and chocolate. That's a classic combination. I love it. It gives you everything you want in that one pie. And of course, Tom Holland always does that. So obviously, it's going to be something that is really, really good. Like a peanut butter pie with peanut butter cups on top, whipped cream, hot fudge, extremely hot, drizzled all over. That's what I give this movie. There's nothing that I find wrong with it in terms of what's in the actual movie. Nothing. So, there you go. Soppy. Now let's get to the spoiler alert. I'd like to just go ahead and say the effect that they cut out. The main character, he gets so thin that they had this look where the skin was starting to come off of his face, and his jaw would be sticking out with his teeth and everything, and it looks really creepy. And they thought that it was too scary, so they didn't put it in the movie. Number two, Tom Holland, while making this movie, actually suffered from paralysis of half of his face. But the producers would not let him go to the doctor. And so, in turn, he did not recover from this for an entire year or two. And it made him actually quit making movies for 12 years. So, all because of these, excuse my language, fuckhead producers, they screwed everything up, and he stopped making movies for 12 years. So, that's disgusting of them. And also, lastly, well, two lastlys. The original ending in the book, he eats this pie with his curse in it, and he dies, as well as his entire family. And test audiences hated that ending. I hate that ending too. It's a typical Stephen King ending, where the main character dies and everything's horrible. And, I'm sick of that crap. You have this great setup, you have these great characters, and then what happens? The main character dies. Wow, it's so great. I'm glad I wasted an hour and a half to see the main character die. And that's what happened in the original ending. And in the newer ending, I loved it. It was a fantastic ending, and it satisfied me very much. And the very last thing, is that his daughter, we were supposed to see her death.
Because she eats some of the pie.
She ate some of the pie, and she ate a whole piece, and we were supposed to see her death. They cut it out, and I wish that they had left it in, because it's a horror movie, or put it in the director's cut. It's a horror movie. That's what horror movies are for. Horror movies are not made so that you can cut out gore and cut out violence. So what do you have to say, Sophie?
Well, I agree with you there. Not that I wanted to see a young girl. She's a teenage girl, a young teenager. And I knew what happened was the gypsy gave him the pie, and he rammed a knife through his hand, and his blood went into the pie, which reminds me of a Grimm episode. And with a witch, and I won't say anything about it, but that's what it reminded me of, because they did the same thing. It bled into cookie dough or something. And but he did that because he said that you can eat it and die and remove the, and then you'll be clean. You'll die clean, right? Isn't that what he said?
Well, I'm just not gonna repeat the plot verbatim for
Well,
people.
anyway, so he takes that pie home, and he wants his wife to have some because he doesn't like her anymore.
Because
And,
she's just as much as to blame for what happened as he is.
yeah, and he even doesn't he say that?
Yeah.
Or he seems like I remember he said it either, and the guy didn't hear him, or he said it in his dream or something. I don't know. It just seemed like it was very far away. And he tells his daughter to go spend the night at her friend's house. And little does he know, she didn't. She stayed there and shared some pie, like Marco said, with the mother. And of course the mother passes away, and we don't see the daughter, and I just knew something was going to happen. The daughter was going to, either she was going to come back early and get some of the pie while he was still in bed, or whatever, but I just had that feeling. And I'm glad. I didn't want to see it, but I agree with Marco that
That's what horror movies are
that's
for.
right, it's a horror movie, so if they have director's cut, to put it in the director's
And
cut.
they don't have any footage, they don't have a director's cut.
No. And
So.
the other thing I didn't like in the movie was, well, that dumb, lewd sex scene in the car, which I thought it was idiotic. And he could have just been drunk. And he wasn't.
No, he wasn't drunk.
He wasn't drunk, but they couldn't have made it that way, and
They shouldn't have done.
and he would have run over and then they don't give him the breathalyzer test, which they didn't do, which they should have done it. Even the sheriff said he should have done it later on after he gets cursed too, which I said at the very beginning. The judge and the sheriff and this guy, Billy. And the other thing I really didn't like was the mobster guy. He's so grateful to him for getting off. And I said this at the beginning. That was like they were celebrating. He won this case. It was a big case. He was going to go to prison, and he got him off. And so it was a big win for him, and the mobster was eternally grateful. And so he said he'd do anything for him in return. And, well, Billy, at first, Billy, he doesn't want anything from him.
Well, he likes doing evil stuff like that. That's what was funny is after he got him to help do certain things with the gypsies, he asked him, "What do I have to do to pay you back, or thank you for all this?" And he's like, "You don't need to thank me. I love doing this stuff." And he was having a lot of fun with the role, and he was one of the big surprises about the movie because he really was having fun and being
Mobster-like.
Yeah.
Only more refined. Very much refined.
He's a cool mobster.
Yeah, he's very slick. I mean, he's not even slick because that's kind of a
one of the things he does before Sophie repeats the entire plot for 10 minutes. One of the things that he does is he goes to the gypsy camp and poisons the dogs.
Oh, I don't like that.
And Sophie didn't like this. She's okay with people getting killed. She's okay with teenage girls getting killed, but
I wasn't okay with that
she's
either.
not okay with some dogs getting poisoned.
I just don't like that. It's something I don't like in movies, when even if it's just all fake, but I don't like it because it happens in real life.
He asked them nicely. They laughed at him. They underestimated him, and they got what they deserved.
Well, this guy was a mobster,
Gypsies.
and he wasn't afraid to do whatever.
He knew
could.
what to do.
Oh yeah.
He's done it before.
Yeah, yeah, he probably had. So, but that's it, really. The rest of it, it's really a good horror movie.
Yeah.
And it's a surprise because I never heard of it. So,
The poster, though, you've seen the poster before.
I may have seen the poster, but I sure don't remember it. And I think it's interesting that they took it off. They wouldn't let people see it because it was so scary. That's what it is. It's a horror movie, so I'm kind of surprised.
I hate it when they do stuff like that.
I'm surprised
It's
about
just
that.
like with The Hitcher, where they cut out all the violence of that movie, and guess what happened? It failed at the box office. Well, this movie failed too. It has like a 15%. It's got like 5 out of 10 score on IMDb. So next week we will be doing what, Safi?
We're doing my favorite Stephen King movie, Rose Red.
Rose Red.
Marco and I got to see the Winchester House this summer in San Jose, California, which is what it's very, 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 very loosely based on.
Yeah, very loosely.
Extremely loosely.
Very loosely.
Because that house is still there and it's beautiful, and the grounds are kept up nicely.
The biggest comparison is how they talk about the history a lot, and they talk about certain things that happen with the build-in process and stuff like that. But we won't get into that. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Until next week.